Welcome back to another episode of the Salty Nerd Podcast. I am your host, the Salty Nerd. In today's episode, we're going to be discussing The Boys, Season 2, Episode 4. And I am joined, as always, by my illustrious co-hosts, Matthew Kadish, author extraordinaire. What's up, man?
What up, you wee twat?
You wee twat. I am also joined by the ambassador of estrogen, Jude.
Hello.
What's up?
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm good.
Good.
How are you?
I'm managing.
Okay.
I'm also joined by the barbarian himself, Matthew Vader.
Making his triumphant return.
That's right.
Making up for lost time.
He's
Goddamn
very
right.
sassy today.
Very sassy. I love it.
What's up, you jerks? Sorry, I burped on the video.
No, that's perfect. That is exactly what I would expect you to do. Anyway, we're talking about The Boys, Episode 4 of the new season. Just dropped on Friday, so we're
Entitled
discussing
Nothing Like It in the World.
Nothing Like It in the World. This was an odd episode for me. It was weird.
It was a weird episode.
I felt very uncomfortable for a majority of this episode.
I turned to Jude after we finished watching it, and I was like, this feels like a bridge episode. It feels like the first 3 episodes, they knew all 3 were going to go out, so like they did like a little complete arc.
Yeah.
And now this episode is setting up the
What's to
later
come.
half of the season.
Yeah, for sure. Who wants to do a quick breakdown? Kadish, you have your notes up? You ready to go?
Yep.
All right, go ahead.
All right, so Nothing Like It in the World, Episode 4. Mother's Milk, Huey, and Annie go on a road trip to find out information on the mysterious superhero Liberty. Frenchie has relationship problems with Kamiko, and Homelander continues to unravel. And we have a lot of interesting kind of different plots going on in this show, so I think I'm just going to go through one at a time, and you guys can jump in on what you thought about it.
That sounds fantastic. That's what we should do.
Lead the way, sir.
Please.
All right. We had a lot of really interesting stuff. The first thing is that Billy Butcher meets with Captain Mallory. Is that her name? Colonel Mallory. And she flat out gives him the location of Becca. So like, you know, I'm kind of glad that they did this because I was afraid that it was going to be stretched out over the course of the season.
No, she kind of felt like it was a little bit of a guilt trip where she was like, I got to do something for you.
She's like, this is all my fault.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, Billy Butcher's through line throughout this episode is that he finds out the location of his long lost wife. He basically abandons the boys. He tells Mother's Milk that he's in charge now and that they should go and check out this information that they got on Liberty, which Mallory had passed to them. And he goes off. He finds the compound that Becca is kind of being held captive in. He scales the wall, makes contact with her, and we finally get the reunion between Butcher and his wife. And he wants to take her away from there. And of course, she has to bring her kid along. But she knows...
Butcher hates superheroes.
Well, he hates superheroes. He's not fond of kids. And she knows him well enough to know that at some point he's going to figure out a way to ditch the kid.
Yeah.
And he basically comes clean with her and says, like, look, that kid represents like $13 billion of Vought's investment. There's no way they're ever going to stop looking for him. As long as he's with us, we will be in danger. And she's like, and that's why I can't leave with you.
Yeah.
And so like his whole arc this episode is about him realizing that as long as Vought is still as powerful as it is, he can never have his wife back.
I also thought it was kind of a revealing character moment for him when he finally got kind of cornered in this conversation, and he basically was like, that kid's a freak. I don't want nothing to do with him.
Yep.
And it totally called out his character.
Yeah.
And from Becca's point of view, being the mother, and she, you know, obviously she's in a tight spot. She can't really do much, but what she can do is be a good mom. And she knows that there's no way that she'll be able to do that and have Butcher with her at the same time.
And
Like,
also,
I was just going to say, there's no marrying of the two worlds that she's living in.
yeah. And also her perspective of, if I leave with you and I leave my child behind, then we're going to have 2 Homelanders in the world, because this is what happened to Homelander when he was raised without a mother.
Yeah. So actually,
Very true.
This is the first time, I know you've said it before, you think Butcher's an asshole and you hate the character.
I do.
I've always liked him, but this moment really shined a light on his flaws. And I was like, oh, it's kind of hard to like the guy after that, because you know it's true.
Yeah.
He's not going to like this kid. He's not going to treat him well. It presents like the most scarring moment of his life is losing his wife, and that's exactly what he sees every time he sees this
And
kid.
he says himself that he's not a role model.
Yeah.
He doesn't treat normal people very well.
Yeah.
So
He's definitely not going to treat some 7-year-old superhero either.
the spawn of his wife's rape, he's not going to.
Yeah. Oh, we did get
into
confirmation that it was in fact a rape. It was not consensual, which was kind of left up in the air in season 1, but
Yeah.
it was confirmed this season. So that scene and that character development for Butcher really kind of put a downer on me. I was like, oh man, like he can't be my hero anymore in this show because he's
good,
so obviously
he's
flawed.
Such a dick.
He's so obviously flawed at that
I think
moment.
everybody in this show's got some flaws.
Yeah.
Frenchie pissed me off in this episode too.
I think
Really? How so?
But before we get to him though,
yeah.
I want to point out that it was interesting to get to see Becca's perspective because like we haven't really gotten a lot of time with her in the past season or so. And, she's basically a prisoner. Like she talks about like, like you get over not being able to go out to a restaurant or go see a movie or hang out with friends or like whatever. But also we get a sense of the real dynamic between her and Butcher and why Butcher loved her so much is because he credited her with making him a good person. And he was like, you saved me. And she's like, I didn't save you, Butcher. I just managed your worst impulses. And so like you got this, like these two different perspectives on what she means to this character of Butcher. And it was just really interesting because, I keep comparing the show to the comic books and the Butcher in the comic books is just, completely unrepentant because in the comics, Becca is dead. Like there is no person out there for him to be searching for. So this kind of idea that, he has his wife, he still loves her and he can't have her, really kind of adds something to his story in the show, and it gives him more motivation to kind of do what he does. And I really appreciated that. I liked, even though I felt like, not as interesting of an episode as it could have been, I felt like we got a lot of stuff that we need to have going forward, especially from Butcher's storyline.
So I know when we're watching something that has been adapted from like a book or graphic novel or something like that, I know that it's easy to be very much a stickler for, oh, well, I wish that they had adhered to the source material more. Do you think that this, I know you, Kadish, you have you read all of the comics or just, okay. So do you think that this is a good, I don't know what the word is.
Compromise?
Adaptation?
Moving away from the source material, do you think that this was a good move?
Well, I think that, so Garth Ennis is one of my favorite comic book writers, and he's the one who created The Boys, and he also created Preacher. And if you look at the way that those two properties were adapted to television, I feel like the adaptation of Preacher was really poorly done. They just basically didn't use any of the comic book for the most part. When it comes to The Boys, I feel like the changes that are being made for the show are actually better than what we had in the comic. And I think that they're doing it a correct adaptation in the sense that they're taking the concepts and ideas and the spirit of the comics and they're running with that. So like in a way, they're actually being very faithful to the comic books, but they're adapting it to TV in a way like, there's so much stuff that happens in the comics that just wouldn't work in live action. And they're really kind of diving down into these characters. Like I said, in the comics, Butcher doesn't get a whole lot of development. Homelander doesn't get a whole lot of development. Like they've really dived into these characters, like Kimoko, she basically has...
She didn't even have a name in the
Yeah, she didn't have a name
comics.
in the comic book. So like, there's a lot of changes that they're making in the adaptation, which I feel are very good. And they're still kind of hinting that there's stuff to come, like the stuff we learned about Mother's Milk in this episode with his father. That's all straight from the comics. And so it makes me wonder if more of Mother's Milk's backstory is going to be revealed and how similar it's going to be in the comics. A lot of stuff with the Stormfront is taken from the comics, but they're changing it to kind of make it a little bit more mysterious, make it a little bit more interesting. So yeah, I feel like The Boys is doing a really good job at taking Garth Ennis's really fucked up comic book and making it palatable
Yes.
to a greater audience.
That's cool. Okay.
Vader, what did you think about this this dive into Butcher's backstory and his character development in this episode?
Nothing that happened really shocked me. I feel like we all knew he was kind of an asshole when he kind of rejected the kid. It didn't shock me at all.
Okay, you were expecting it more or
I
less?
kind of expected him to. I didn't know where they were going to go, but what happened kind of stayed true to what we know about him, as far as I'm concerned.
Right on.
I'm glad that they didn't stretch this out until episode 8.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I'm glad
That would have been really frustrating.
Yeah, I'm glad that this is like the midpoint in the season where he finally gets to reunite with his wife, and now he has a completely different goal where it's not about taking down Homelander, it's about taking down Vought.
Yeah. So he's going to go back to The Boys with a a game plan at least.
New mission,
A
yeah.
new, a new
mission.
motivation.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about Frenchie so that
perfect.
Alex can
I can vent.
vent about this. So basically, this episode comes off with Kimiko basically still kind of mourning her brother and being angry and distraught. And Frenchie can see how much pain she's in, so he just really wants to kind of, lighten that burden. And he kind of misreads the situation and tries to kiss her because he wants to like physically comfort her. And she actually ends up kind of attacking him, like rejecting his kiss and like grabbing his throat and kind of choking him. And he runs away and he's distraught, not just because, she rejected his advances, but also because he feels like he failed her in some way. And so he goes and he reconnects with Cherie, who's like the girl from season 1 that he was kind of rooming with, who's kind of like his sidekick. And he hooks up with her and she's kind of like his
side piece.
Yeah. She's kind of like his sounding board. So like he's talking to her about like his feelings about Kimiko, and it's kind of weird. Like they're in bed, they just had sex, and he's like kind of talking about this other girl.
Yeah.
But she's like totally cool with it, and she's kind of giving him advice. And he ends up kind of stopping Kimiko from attacking Stormfront and basically committing suicide at the end of the episode because he cares about her. But Kimiko just is upset that he stopped her. And so like their relationship's a little bit strained at the moment.
This irritated the hell out of me.
Why?
Because read the room, bro. Like seeing him, he was like taking some kind of a drug. It was just a pill that he crushed up. So I don't know if it wasn't cocaine, but it was something that he was like using to kind of numb himself up. And then immediately he goes into try to comfort, quote unquote, Kimiko. And I was just like, that is such the wrong move to make at this point, dude. Like it was kind of off-putting for me. And I was like, why?
It didn't surprise me that he tried.
Really?
I mean, he's obviously in love with her.
Yeah, he's in love with her, but I didn't.
And he's high. So he goes in there and, I mean, have you ever been high and just been like,
high and
think
horny?
I'll try this move.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, it didn't, what he did didn't
all their
surprise me.
nerves have been frayed since like
Yeah.
episode 1.
He's in love with her. He's high. Emotions or intentions are high. It didn't surprise me what he did. I wasn't taken out of it by that.
And then when he runs away and he goes to his side piece and like he gets laid real quick and then discuss. I just felt like it was like a weird moment for me where I'm like, I know he's kind of a sleazeball. That's kind of his character in the first season, but I thought maybe since he's met Kimiko and showed some kind of a humanity and some kind of a heart that he might have like moved on from that.
Yeah, but this is one of the things that I love about this show is that every character is fully committed to who their character is. And this is right in line with who his character is.
Yeah,
so
I never-
nothing surprised me and nothing was off-putting for me because this is exactly who he is. Sorry, Vader. Go
Oh, it's
ahead.
fine. I was interrupting you. I never felt like he was out of character either. And these people have flaws.
Deep flaws.
Yeah.
I suppose you're right. It just irritated me because I was hoping he would be better than that, but I guess I was wrong. But yeah, I was like, I don't want to say I was shocked. I was just more irritated that because I really like his character and I like the relationship between him and Kimiko, and I was disappointed to see it go down that route. Mm-hmm. And then when he like stops her from confronting Stormfront in public, maybe they're on the right track again. Like he kind of just had this one moment of weakness where he made a mistake and now he's going to try and make up for it. Which
I think he was ashamed, and that's how he dealt with his shame.
was getting laid.
It's like, I can't believe I did that.
Yeah.
He still needed to numb his pain.
I guess. I don't know.
Speaking about being ashamed and numbing pain, we have a little the deep storyline.
I'm so done with this guy. I'm so done with this character.
All throughout the episode, we see these little vignettes of women being interviewed about their significant others.
Which was so weird. And we were both like, what is this until the end?
Yeah,
It was a weird episode.
Yeah, so like every girl who's kind of like doing this confessional type thing, talking to a camera, and they're talking about their experience with like love. And it's like, there's this one girl who her ex-boyfriend really loved Ed Sheeran, and he asked her to get an Ed Sheeran tattoo with him, and so like they both got Ed Sheeran tattoos, and then a week later he broke up with her, and she's like, I hate Ed Sheeran, and now I have this tattoo of him on my arm forever. And so like they're
Was
just
that the one
a terrible
the lady
tattoo.
chose?
No.
Okay.
No, the one that the lady chose. So like there was another girl, her name was Cassandra, and she was telling a story about these two skeletons that were found embracing one another, and they were called something lovers. I forget the name of the city that they were found in. But she had this kind of romantic idea of like, you have to be that committed to the person you love that like you would love them for eternity and stuff like that. And so like every girl that had like these little vignettes talking about relationships and stuff like that were kind of fucked up. And then at the end, we discovered that they're being interviewed by the Deep, along with Carol from the Church of the Collective, which is kind of like the superhero Scientology religion in the show. And basically they're interviewing candidates for the Deep's wife because they want to rehabilitate his image as being a loving husband as opposed to a rapist. And that would
probably a good move.
And that'll be a way to get him back on the seven. And so like they're basically screening all these women, and the Deep of course wants to go with like the slutty like sex pot.
I'm a feminist. I give pleasure for whatever reason I want. There's nothing wrong with that. She was weird.
Yeah. She was very over the top, sexually aggressive.
Yeah.
And he liked it.
I want her.
And so Carol is like, like, you're going to get Cassandra, who's the girl who talked about like the skeletons.
And he was like, don't I get to choose? And she said, yes, of course.
But
and
you're
choosing Cassandra.
Yeah.
Very cultish.
Yeah. So like, so that was kind of the Deep's appearance. And this wasn't revealed until like the end of the episode that it was actually the Deep interviewing all these women. And it was kind of interesting because like we're starting to kind of see more of like the plan for like the Church of the Collective and how they're going to use the Deep to infiltrate the Seven and stuff like that. So that storyline I thought was kind of interesting. And then we have kind of like the main thing with Mother's Milk, Huey, and Starlight, where this
is a big reveal for the character of Stormfront too.
Yeah.
They go on a road trip.
Yeah, so basically, Mother's Milk is now the de facto leader of the boys, even though he doesn't want the title. But he's like, you're the only guy I trust to take that position. And so they're given this mission by the Colonel to find out all they can about a superhero from the 50s or something like that.
It was the 70s.
Maybe the 70s, called Liberty. And she was kind of like a low-level superhero. Nobody knows much about her. She kind of disappeared. And basically, Mother's Milk is going to take Huey with him because Frenchie's kind of like on drugs. They all know he's on drugs. He kind of messed up.
They're like, he's been high for days. He won't even notice we're gone.
Yeah. and right before the trip, basically, Starlight has a run-in with Homelander where Homelander, and we'll get into this in a little bit, is kind of cleaning house, and he almost kills her. And she finds a way out of it, but she's very rattled. And she goes to meet with Huey because she's just looking for something to kind of like alleviate this anxiety she's feeling. Because, she talks about how every time she's in the Seven Towers, she feels like she's got a gun pointed in her face, like a loaded gun.
And she still just has to act like everything's fine.
Because like she's like, I don't know if and when Homelander is just going to come around a corner and just kill me.
And I think she knows at this point that Homelander can do whatever he wants in front of whoever he wants, and they're just going to clean up the mess because he's Homelander, and she's not as important.
She's
not a whole lot they can do about it if they wanted to.
Yeah. And I am curious though, like I don't know if we're ever going to see it or not, but like on a power level, like how much could she actually do to defend herself?
I'm curious about that myself.
Because she seems like her powers are pretty muted so far. Like she's only used them a handful of times and not for anything real big.
But I think if she had the element of surprise, I think that she could do some serious damage to him.
I'd be curious to see what she would be able to do against Homelander.
So Annie is basically looking for, some comfort from Huey, who's a little bit oblivious to it at first, and he's about to rush off to go meet Mother's Milk, and he realizes like, there's something wrong here. And so he brings Annie with him to meet Mother's Milk, and he suggests that they bring Annie with them. And Mother's Milk at first, he's like, no frickin' way, she's chipped, Vought can track her. And she's like, I'm just going to tell them that I'm going to visit my cousin, and, it's not going to be a big deal. And Huey makes the case, it's like, if we're trying to track down a superhero, it might be smart to have another superpowered person with us in case this superhero ends up being hostile. And so Mother's Milk reluctantly agrees to bring her along, and so like they have like this little road trip.
Yeah.
And throughout the road trip, a lot of interesting stuff happens. Like we see Annie and Huey kind of reconnect and kind of start up their fling again.
They sing karaoke together in the car.
Well, they sing Billy Joel, which is funny, and that Billy Joel song. We didn't start the fire.
He's kind of a thing through the series, right?
Yeah. Spice Girls was season 1. Billy Joel's season 2.
Yeah.
He's talking about Billy Joel when Robin dies. Like it's from episode 1. He just loves Billy Joel. So I think it's cute that it's like in pretty much every episode.
Yeah, and then when he realizes that Anna Starlight is also a fan of Billy Joel and she starts singing and she knows all the words, he's like, it really makes him happy
and
to
it just
see that.
annoys Mother's Milk.
Yeah.
He's like the Matt Bader of that car ride.
Everybody knows the words of that song.
Yeah.
I don't know the words of that song.
Well, you would if it was
Not that
playing.
hard.
We when I was a kid and that song came out, like we memorized every single
everybody knows that
lyric
song.
to that song. But
too young.
Annie actually notices Mother's Milk has OCD.
Yeah.
And she points it out to Huey, and Huey's like, "What? I've never noticed this before." So it's kind of interesting to see like Annie, like we get to see how observant she is, and she actually bonds with Mother's Milk over stories about their fathers, and we learn about Mother's Milk's dad in this episode, which is actually taken from the comics, where he's basically this kind of civil rights lawyer who, got out of prison, and he went after Vought. Like with lots of different like civil rights lawsuits, never gave up, and eventually died from stress because like he was just so obsessed with taking down Vought.
Yeah.
And Mother's Milk has kind of taken up his cause and is now crusading.
This story wasn't revealed until they met up with this woman who had some information about this character, Liberty.
Yeah. And they think that they're tracking a superhero named Liberty, and turns out who they're going to meet is one of her victims.
Yeah. And honestly, when Mother's Milk was telling that story, I really half expected him to just tell Huey that, oh no, I just made that up on the spot to make her. Yeah. I was like ready for him to say that. I was surprised that it was a true story. I wasn't expecting that. I thought, because Mother's Milk, like he's different than the other boys. He has more of a heart. He's got a family.
Yeah.
He's a normal person as far as that goes. But
I hate his name.
Mother's Milk. It is weird, isn't it?
There's a reason behind that.
Yeah, I'm sure there is.
But I mean, his last name is Milk, though. I think his first name is like Martin or something.
Yeah. But anyway, I really expected him to kind of fall in line with the rest of the boys and be kind of like that messed up character and just be like, oh no, I just made that to get past the door.
Yeah. And again, that's one of the things I love about this show is that their character development and like the steps that they take to give more depth to each character. And I felt like Mother's Milk was already like a set in stone character. This is who he is and this is how he's different, but this just gave him so much more depth that we got a little bit more information on like his upbringing.
Yeah. What did you think, Vader?
I think I'm learning stuff listening to you guys talk about the show.
Did you not pick up on that?
I guess I didn't pick up on some of this stuff.
And also I felt like in the last episode, in episode 3, we got a lot of backstory on the super powered children, like how they were raised. And now we've got this, story of Mother's Milk's childhood too. And it's just giving us more into like how, like from their childhood, like what led up to the adult characters that we have in this story right now. I love it.
I love that scene where Annie bonds with Mother's Milk, where she talks about how, her mother, because she wanted to raise the superhero, she was never allowed to have any sugar or sweets. And then like her father would occasionally sneak her out to Dunkin' Donuts and get her like a chocolate cream filled donut. And it was like the best thing in the world. And then Mother's Milk says like, every Sunday after church, my dad would take me to the Baskin Robbins and he'd sit there and he'd ask for a sample of every single 31 flavor. and the line would be out the door and he'd just keep asking for samples. And I used to be so embarrassed by that, but now like I'd give anything to stand in line with my dad again as he's just sitting there getting samples. And it was such a powerful bonding moment.
It really was.
It was another subversion of expectations for me because again, I was expecting Mother's Milk to be just like the other boys and be like really jacked up and kind of a dick. And when he sat there and she told her story about her father, and he kind of like did his little OCD thing where he sets everything up on the table and then he sits there and he gets ready to talk back to her. I fully expected him to be like, you know what? I'm not here to get to know you. I don't give a crap about your family. I'm here to do a mission. Like I expected him to say that. And when he goes into this like heartfelt story about his dad, I was like, holy cow.
Yeah.
Like, where'd that come from?
Yeah.
And I also loved Huey reconnecting with Starlight because like they had such a difficult kind of patch there where, she found out he betrayed her and all this stuff, put her life at risk.
She's still harboring a lot from that betrayal.
She is, but then like you see like, she's at the candy machine and he comes and he starts giving her crap about liking Almond Joy. And she's like, well, I also like Charleston Chew and Bit Honey. And he's like, those are like the 3 worst candy bars ever.
They really are.
Bit of honeys are awesome.
I think Almond Joys are awesome.
Almond Joys suck ass. All right.
I love Almond Joys.
And Charleston Chews. Ugh. My wife has a frozen box of mini Charleston shoes in the freezer right now.
But then like her
I just want to throw them in the garbage.
Annie and Huey end up having sex that night, and
Boobs.
he goes to turn off the light, and she's like, I got it.
Yes, we got boobs.
She's like, I got it, and she uses her power to dim the lights, and she's like, I still want to be able to see you.
Yeah,
and like
because she doesn't trust him.
but it was interesting because like we saw in the previous episode like how far gone Huey was, and like she almost killed him in episode 3, and like he was like so on the edge and so frayed that I feel like this kind of saved both their lives because it comforted Annie, but it also brought Huey back to normalcy and somewhat. And
sexual healing.
And at the end, when Annie tells him that it's not safe to be together, like you can just see like how crushed he is.
She didn't look too happy about it either.
But she realized that like in order to stay safe, like it was best for both of them.
And I love that part where she's like, nobody's safe. Nobody gets to feel safe. What are you talking about? Like, we don't get to be happy. We don't get to be distracted. We don't get to feel safe.
Yeah.
We're on a mission.
These people are on a mission, and they know it.
But the big thing to come out of the storyline is that so they meet the victim of Liberty, who basically she killed the brother of this woman who he did nothing other than drive a car while being black, and she uses like this Liberty character uses a racial slur before she kills this character, and this woman is telling Mother's Milk, Huey, and Starlight about it, and they're like, oh well, this character, no one's ever heard of Liberty since then, and she's got to be like 80 by now, and she's like, no, she's not. And she puts down a newspaper with a picture of Stormfront on it, and it's like, that's Liberty.
Yep.
So we find out Stormfront is this character Liberty from like the 70s or 60s or something.
And Vader, you totally called it about her being a racist.
Oh yeah. Let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah, I listened to this show last week, and we're like talking in our private chat, and I was like, how did you guys miss this? It's like it's unbelievable to me. But yeah. She's a total racist.
So like,
absolutely.
I like last the mid-season finale or whatever you want to call episode 3, where Stormfront kills Kamiko's brother Mouse. I knew that they were definitely like putting it out in plain view that she was a racist because she called him that racial slur right before she killed him, and it's kind of like it's a big reveal.
And all the black people she killed.
But that's what I didn't really notice. When she was going through that apartment building, it never crossed my mind that everybody that she was killing on the whim was black. I don't know. I didn't realize.
Didn't catch it. I didn't catch it.
I was just like,
she's putting a little extra juice on her. On her superpower shots there.
I don't know. I mean, I don't want to sound cliche, but I didn't see the color of the people that she was murdering. I was just like, oh, she's just murdering people.
No.
But you called it out. She's like, that like apartment building was filled with black people. And I'm like, oh, that's so much worse.
Yeah.
But I was happy that I didn't like defend her or anything last week and make a fool out of myself. But yeah, I totally want Homelander to kill her now.
So this kind of dovetails into the last plot of the show, which is Homelander's subplot.
Yeah.
And this
he is unraveling.
Yeah, so he's my favorite character in the show.
Creeps.
But
I think you're just more of a fan of the actor that plays him.
Anthony Starr is amazing.
He's amazing.
Homelander's the worst.
He's awful.
He's the worst.
Is he worse than Butcher?
Dude, he's
Yes.
the whole doppelganger thing.
Oh, that was so creepy.
Just blew my mind.
Hold on,
I know he needs to go.
Yeah, let him spill the plot out, and then we'll talk about it. Go
Spill
ahead.
that tea, honey.
Go ahead, Kadish.
All right, so the Homelander storyline this episode, basically he sees Stormfront kind of usurping his position in the public eye, and Homelander is someone who his entire identity and self-worth is based around how many people love him. So he's kind of like on edge this entire episode. And he goes to like this remote cabin, and we see the return of Elizabeth Shue as Madeline Stillwell. And at first you're like, what the fuck is going on
I
here?
thought this was a hallucination.
Yeah,
I did too.
Okay.
So like Madeline Stillwell's in this cabin. She's got like this glass of milk, and she dips her fingers
It's
into
so
it.
creepy.
And like he sucks the milk off her finger, and then they're like watching a movie together, and he's like laying his head in her lap like he did in season 1. And the entire time, like you're wondering, like is she a clone? Is this like a hallucination? Like what's going on here? And then all of a sudden, like Madeline Stillwell transforms, and it's revealed that it's actually Doppelganger, who's like this bald, fat, like dude. and Homelander gets upset. He's like, damn it, Doppelganger, change back right now. And he's like, if I hold a
single form so long, it hurts after a while.
And so he's like, I don't care, you do it now. And so like it's revealed that doppelganger from season 1, who became like this,
The senator.
bartender who had sex with the senator.
Yeah.
Like he changes back into Madeline Stillwell, and it's just like, it's like the scene was creepy before, but now it became like way
It's
creepier.
double creepy now.
But so doppelganger, as Madeline Stillwell kind of recommends to Homelander that he do something to kind of regain his power.
Yeah.
And so Homelander basically decides to kind of clean house after this. So he confronts Annie, almost kills her in the elevator. So like he like kind of pins her up against the wall, and he's about to like shove his hand up through her rib cage. And because she didn't kill Huey, so he doesn't trust her. And she's like, Huey broke my heart. I've been betrayed by everyone. Like, tell me if I'm lying. And she's like,
She basically said she's not going to murder somebody. I'm not a cold-blooded murderer.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so Homelander is kind of satiated by that response. So like he lets her go. But then he goes and he knows that A-Train is basically has a heart problem. And he's not as fast as he used to be. He says, in fact, Homelander says, like, you're not even in the top 20 fastest superheroes out there anymore. And so he basically kicks A-Train off the team, and A-Train is pissed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really interested to see where this goes.
Yeah.
Because I think this, if anything, is going to make A-Train flip, it's going to be this.
Yeah, and we even got to see
I don't want to see a redemption arc for A-Train.
You don't?
No.
I
Oh,
don't
I want to
either.
see him join the
He's-
boys.
I think he's a scumbag. I do not like
I
that
think he's a
character.
scumbag.
Yeah, we also got to see the return of Shockwave in this episode.
Yeah.
Just a
like-
quick glimpse.
Yeah, who's
And-
like A-Train's nemesis.
Homelander outs Maeve in an interview that she's gay.
That
Yeah.
was harsh.
Yeah, so they're on the Maria Menounos show, which is, she's an actual kind of like Entertainment
Yeah.
Tonight, like kind of like celebrity.
Wait, that's a real person?
show
Yeah,
reporter.
Yeah.
In our world?
She was on E.
Yeah.
Oh, I have no idea.
Fashion
Okay.
Police and stuff.
Oh,
My
so
wife
it's like
used
it's
to
like they're
watch.
doing like the like Ellen show or something.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Like Maria Menounos, she's like the person you see before like the movies roll, where she's like you got to see the M&Ms, like talk about like their new color and stuff like that. Like she's a very saccharine kind of like softball pitching,
Okay.
like
She's
entertainment
Mario
journalist.
Lopez, but a girl.
I didn't
Yeah,
know she was
exactly.
a real. I thought it was just a character in the show. But, okay,
Yeah,
cool.
and so like basically Maeve and Homelander are doing the press rounds about the revelation that Compound V exists.
Mm-hmm.
And so Maria is basically throwing them some softballs about like, did you guys know that Compound V was a thing? And then
Oh, what was that hashtag? It was
it was superheroes so white.
yeah.
Hashtag superheroes so white.
yeah, she brought up the diversity of the 7, like trying to call them out as far as like.
they said that like 80% of all superheroes are white.
Yeah.
And they're like, do you have like any explanation for that? And so Homelander starts kind of like laughing off. He's like, oh, you're throwing some hard questions
Yeah.
my way, Maria Menounos. And so he starts talking about all the quote unquote diversity that they have on the 7. When he's like,
when
well,
he talks about Black Noir,
he doesn't identify as anybody, so there you go.
they're covered.
and he's like, well, A-Train's obviously an African American, and
Yeah.
Black Noir is, well, he could be anything. And he's like, and we even have a gay superhero on the 7. And Maria,
And she just has to smile and like take it, and it was like a, and it was a hard moment
and
to
it's
watch.
basically revealed that Homelander found out that
He's like,
Maeve-
and her lover's Hispanic, so
Playing all the cards.
Yeah, but he basically outs Maeve on live TV, and then they have like this kind of confrontation backstage where Homelander basically he's like, enough with the lies. Like, I know you're lying to me. He kind of says like, well, now you're out. You can be with this woman, and I'm happy for you.
and the way he says it, it's like he's
not happy.
you
for
can't
her.
trust that.
Yeah.
Again, with the actor's expressions, the
he's
words
such
that
a
are
good actor.
the words that are coming out of his mouth do not match what's coming out of his
No.
eyes. He's just like, I'm going to kill you like tomorrow.
I
But I'm so
I
happy
will
for
admit
you.
Yeah.
that the guy who plays Homelander, he's incredible in this.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
He probably should earn some awards for this performance.
Oh
But
yeah, Anthony Starr kills it in this role.
Yeah.
So he fires A-Train, he outs Maeve, and then like he goes and he confronts Stormfront. And Stormfront had like this big rally where like, she was like, Vought's not doing anything. All these supervillains are coming out. We need like more superheroes. And so he has a confrontation with her, and she kind of like runs circles around him where she's like,
She's just she's more savvy to like the modern culture than he is.
but she also kind of like drops hints that like, he's the type of heroes. We need more of the big, tall, Aryan, powerful Superman type.
And I think it's really funny that she's so savvy with today's like modern culture, and she's clearly the oldest.
Yeah, well, she said she had to reinvent herself.
Yeah. Well, I the moment where she was like, anger sells, and like I have an army, not just fan. I'm like, dude, that is so true for like.
Oh well, she's totally. They're totally taking a shot at modern internet culture. There.
Yes, 100%. And she's playing it like a fiddle. And Homelander's just oblivious to it. Like he's like very old school, like 1950s and 60s, like Americana. And she's just like, no, this is 2020 rage culture, baby. Let's play it like a fiddle, man. Let's go. So I thought that was a really cool play. And that little dynamic that they had, I was probably as frustrated as Homelander was with it. Cause I'm like, I really despise that culture as well. And seeing him, like he gets pissed and his eyes turn red.
The issue I kind of have is that I think they're going down that road where if you're critical of things, you know, if you show a conservative bent to that, then you're a Nazi.
Yeah.
Because she's straight up a Nazi.
Yes, she is. Her character is based off of a Nazi character.
I don't know how that's going to play out in my little world because I'm not a Nazi.
Yeah.
But I have issues with stuff.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not down for the cause. I'm not a BLM supporter. I'm not, I don't mean to get political here.
Well, the show's going to get political eventually.
She's capping on me in some aspects, and I don't know how I'm going to react to that because it is what it is, but it's fine.
That's what I think.
I can tell you that the character that she's based on in the comic books, it's not a political thing. Like it's straight up like this was a character that was created by the Nazis. He's always been a Nazi, and Vought has kind of like tapered down his, public profile to the point where he's like kind of harmless, but he's still like a super dangerous superhero that has like all these prejudices. Yeah. So like, I don't think it's going to be like a political statement because anything Garth Ennis, it's like his style and the show has kind of preserved this. It's more ironic than it is like judgmental. Like they're not trying to preach to you.
I just kind of hope they don't go down the road where they're going to portray all these Stormfront people as like Trump supporters.
Yeah,
or something
I would hate
like
to see that. But honestly,
I hope they don't.
I hope I'm on the same page as you, but seeing what we've seen so far with her style and the way she's doing like these public like rallies and stuff like that, that seems more left leaning as far as like
I feel like they're doing the more of the kind of Antifa rally approach.
Yeah.
But with a Trump-esque message attached to them.
I don't know.
Sort of thing. I don't know. Whatever. It doesn't matter.
I haven't gotten any like political undertones from the show yet.
It's been really light.
I did think it was interesting too that she was like, I don't need 5 million fans. I've got 5 guys with laptops creating memes.
Yeah.
And I got an army now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so after his confrontation with Stormfront, Homelander is very on edge. He goes back to the cabin where Doppelganger is. Doppelganger notices that Madeline Stillwell isn't doing anything for him, so he switches into a version of Homelander. So he's basically he looks
in that
just like
same
Homelander.
little negligee.
So creepy.
And he's like, I want to suck your cock, and it's not gay.
You're gonna look into your own eyes when you come. It was so weird.
And he's like, it's not gay if you're the one doing it. And Homelander basically just straight up kills him.
Yeah. Thankfully, I was like worried that
breaks his neck.
There was a moment where I was like, oh my God, he's gonna do it. Oh shit, he's gonna do it. And then he like turned and he's like basically like has like weird self-loathing complex going on where it's a very deep subject, but it was super awkward to watch.
Stormfront told him that he's so powerful he doesn't need anyone, and in that moment, right after he kills Doppelganger and basically gets rid of his like Madeline Stillwell,
his crutch,
he says, "I don't need anybody." And so like he kind of shows that Stormfront is kind of growing her influence over him in a way. And it just shows how vulnerable he is mentally at this stage. And so the final storyline that I wanted to talk about was Black Noirs. Black Noir shows up in this episode. to the IT department, like the people who are responsible for like tracking like the crimes and stuff. And he just hands this lady a paper that just says butcher on it.
In like crayon.
Yeah. And she's like, oh, you want us to find William Butcher? And he just stares at her and she's like, okay, I'll start the facial recognition. And then like, she's eating an Almond Joy, another Almond Joy reference.
Yeah, what's up with
And
that?
she's like, would you like one? And he just gives her a bucket to throw it in.
He gives her a trash can and she's like, I guess I'm done with this. And then like later on,
I love Black Noir.
and then like he's like sits down right next to her and she's like, oh, you're joining
gonna
me?
stay?
Okay then.
She's there for like 16 hours.
Yeah.
12 Red Bulls later.
Yeah, she's got 12 like empty Red Bull cans at her station. And finally she finds like Butcher jumping over the wall and he like flicks off the camera.
Yeah.
And Black Noir then just like mobilizes because now he knows where Butcher is.
Yeah. So is this like, because last episode we see Black Noir kind of take the whole reveal of Compound V pretty hard. And I'm curious, like, is this going to be a moment where he's like found his resolve?
I think he's over it.
He's going to go take down Butcher, or if he's trying to find Butcher to like maybe try and figure out what's going on with the Compound V
I have
thing.
no idea.
Well, it's funny because after we finished this episode, I rewatched the 2 trailers for season 2.
Mm-hmm.
And there are shots in there of Butcher fighting Black Noir, like straight up going toe to toe with him.
Okay.
So I think Black Noir is going to be hunting down Butcher, and there are going to be some throwdowns there, which should be really interesting to see.
Right on. All right. Well, that's our recap of episode 4 of The Boys.
Are we going to do final thoughts?
Final thoughts around the table. Vader, what did you think about this episode?
I thought it was a weird episode.
Yeah.
But we're mid-season, so they got to do some stuff.
Character development.
Yeah, for sure.
Jude, what about you?
Well, I felt like they needed, because obviously the story is going somewhere else. So it's not necessarily about like Butcher stealing Becca and Ryan away. Like we needed more to the story there. So now the story is transforming into now we have to take down Vought because we'll never just get away from Vought. So they needed an episode to kind of transition into that.
Right on. And Vader, Kadish, what about you?
I felt like this was very much a bridge episode. Like Vader's right. Like it was a weird episode because the entire time I was sitting there watching, I'm like, this feels very transitionatory. Like it feels like they're setting the stage for like, the rest of the episodes to come. And that's necessary in like a kind of confined season where you only have 8 episodes. So like I can appreciate what they were doing, but at the same time I was like, I kind of wish it was a little bit more entertaining. So like not the best episode we've seen of the season so far, but a very necessary episode.
Yeah.
And I told Jude after we finished watching, I was like, God damn, I wish they had just dropped the whole season. Because
I was just about to say that. Like if we had gotten to just marathon this whole season, I don't think any of us would like pause on this episode like it was so weird. We would just go to the next episode.
Then we'd be done with it.
Yeah. We'd do one episode.
We'd be doing one episode today, and that would be the end of it.
Definitely gives us more to talk about.
That's the difference between content creators and consumers. Is the content creators want longevity.
Just to touch on that, I do kind of feel like this was a good compromise this year. Dump the 3 episodes, and then we get the next 5.
Yeah.
Week by week. It's that way. It's not super long drawn out. It's not like it's 25 episodes like back in the day when we'd have 6 months of or whatever of what is that 5-6 months.
How many episodes did Game of Thrones have per season?
Like they had like 10 to 12.
10 to 12.
Well, I got less and less per.
Less and less as they went along.
That's just something
Final
I do.
season was just 6 episodes, right?
But anyway, these bingey kids today are spoiled. Because,
But back
in the
to
day.
what you were just saying about like the writers of Game of Thrones is something that I did want to give credit to, is that the writers of this really take the time to make each character so solid and so intricate. And it would be really easy to take some shortcuts, like you were saying earlier with Mother's Milk, and how it would have been really easy for him to be like, oh, that's bullshit. But they took the time to just double down on his story and be like, yeah, and here's more. And I just give so much credit to smart writing, because it's so easy. And I think that's something that irritates all of us, is like when you're watching something and it's hard to get invested in something because of the writing is being so lazy. That's not an issue with this show at all. And that's one of the reasons why I love it so much, that I can just fully invest in it and I can trust where they're going to take me.
Yeah. As long as they hang on to that energy for the next however many seasons.
It's very well done so far.
Yeah.
For sure.
I mean, we're pretty early on. We're only in season 2. So we'll see what happens when season 6 and 7
How many seasons are they planning? Do we know?
I don't know.
Who knows? But this season's been very consistent with like the first season in terms of like tone and quality and stuff like that. So like anyone who really liked the first season is going to like this season pretty much.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us for our review of The Boys, episode 4, season 2. Look forward to every week. We're going to be breaking down each episode that comes out. So join us. Go to saltynerdpodcast.com, hit the subscribe button, share it with your friends, like, comment, let us know what you think of the show. And if you'd like to support the show, you can go to saltynerdclub.com, and that will take you to our Patreon page where we have exclusive access to blooper reels and other podcasts, along with merchandise and some advanced show notes for shows.
Most of my content.
Just the raunchy stuff. If you want to hear Vader get raunchy.
Vader goes on a rant.
Yeah. It's in there. Anyway, so if you'd like to support the podcast, pick a tier at saltynerdclub.com, or just like, subscribe, and share the podcast with your friends. Thanks, everybody. Let's go around the table real quick. Jude, where can they find you on the socials?
You can find me at I am Jude Juju on Instagram and Twitter.
Right on. And Matthew Kadish, where can they find you?
At Matthew Kadish, Kadish, on Twitter, and kadishbooks.com on Amazon.
Right on. And the Barbarian, Matt Vader, where can they find you?
Matt Vader 74, 2 T's. The second T is silent. And at Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, stuff like that. Yeah.
Right on, guys. All right, everybody. Have a great week.